Good morning, everybody. I'm back here again with Artur, and today we have another amazing special guest, Temi, and I'm not even going to try to say your last name because I'll mess it. Siyanbade?
Very close. Siyanbade. It's Nigerian.
Oh, Siyanbade. Oh, that sounds so much nicer. So we met up a little bit over a month ago in Chicago at the ABA Tech Show at the Women in Tech Day, and you gave this amazing talk. It was like in a speed dating type of format, and it was so great. It really inspired me, and so thank you for joining us, because I think you have a lot of inspiration that you can give to people. And so maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get in. I'd love for you to tell that story again, but tell us just a little bit about your background.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited about this. So again, my name is Temi Siyanbade, and I'm a Houston-based attorney. I work with a company called WealthCounsel, and I also assist clients on the side as well, primarily in the areas of business law. So before I became this attorney, I started out as a teacher, actually. Born in Providence, Rhode Island, moved with my family to Georgia, went to UGA for undergrad. And then after undergrad, I worked with Teach for America as an 8th grade writing teacher. And so I always considered that an extension of my education, because it was so insightful in ways about like just communicating and things that are going on in the real world. Because we're in low-income neighborhoods, working with students and trying to, trying to help them and trying to teach effectively, where conditions weren't always trying to assist with that goal. And so after a few years, I decided it was time for a change of pace. I never wanted to be in a profession where I was just doing it for the paycheck. And so at some point, due to like different changes in the way education started to change, I felt as though I was discouraged, and it was never about the kids. It was more of an administrative thing and more about the structure and the way teachers were being asked. And I started to think about some of the additional things that were impacting my students, right? So what were the structural things outside of the classroom that the teachers were having to deal with as well? And because we were dealing again with low-income neighborhoods, there was a lot of infrastructure issues. I remember specifically having students who were dealing with homelessness, and students dealing with parents who are incarcerated and things like that. And I started to say to myself, okay, what are the structures, or where can I go where I can have a greater impact on those things, so that the people who I know who are doing amazing work in the classrooms have assistance, or, so that the burden is not as heavy. And so I made my transition from teaching to law. I went to the University of Houston Law Center. And after that, I dabbled a little bit in immigration because I'm Nigerian American, and I know about the challenges that our immigration world is, but I never really was passionate about it.
Yeah.
I had a greater passion for criminal defense, to be honest. And so I had interned with our public defender's office. And so after law school, it was like, if you want to do criminal defense, the best thing to do is open up your own firm. And so I did that, got in contact with some great Houston criminal defense attorneys, had a great network, really loved it, but then found as though the people around me were entrepreneurs. And they kept on asking me business questions. And I was like, why are you asking me these questions? But I would figure out a way to answer those questions. I'd figure out a way to provide a solution. And so I found that over time, more of my questions started to become more business related. And I realized that there was this like hole where there were these people who needed business solutions, right? Needed assistance, needed guidance in the business law area, but didn't find it, didn't have it. And so that kind of has pivoted me again, and now I've become more of a business lawyer. And it actually, for me, has helped me also with the criminal defense passion that I have.
Yeah.
Because I've found that one of the biggest things that leads to criminal behavior, right, is poverty. And it's really a matter of economic disparities that have occurred. And so I'm like, okay, if I can empower communities to be more economically stable, right, then I can probably assist in balancing that. Because when you go into a criminal courtroom, you're not seeing, the prim and proper people. You're not seeing people who have money. You're seeing people who are impoverished for the most part. And so I'm able to kind of touch that passion of mine. I'm able to give to organizations that I feel are doing, excellent work in that area. There's two that come to mind. One's called Restoring Justice, another one's called Gideon's Promise. But that's my story, but it's not the story you were talking about.
Well, and the funny thing is, I didn't realize all that. And as we were talking about before we started recording, I said it's really important to me and to Artur that we tell stories that can inspire, especially law students that are maybe feeling uncertain right now.
Yeah.
And a topic that frequently comes up is this idea of pivoting, of changing careers, that don't worry about what you're doing right now, because you're probably going to be doing something different at, maybe it's going to be 1 year, maybe it's going to be 10 years, but it's very unlikely that you're going to be doing the exact same thing throughout your career. So kind of chill out a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but
I totally agree. Because I remember being in law school and watching everyone like racing for the corporate, I need to be top 10% of my class. And for a while I was doing that. I mean, everybody wants to be top 10%. Everybody wants those amazing salaries, right? But then I remember just thinking about the stories that come with that lifestyle, right? And you hear about people who are like, I live for my firm, like I'm a slave to my firm. And I stepped back and I remember, I think this was my 2L year. And I remember just stopping and being like, I don't actually want that. Like, I don't want what everybody else wants. And I made peace with that. I think part of it was having, being a teacher before and realizing, okay, there's a lot more to life, like there's a lot happening in this world that kind of just helped me to feel a little bit more grounded. And I was like, I don't want that. So even when I was looking for firm jobs, I was definitely looking for mid and small firms, because I was like, I don't want that lifestyle. And I think it's important to kind of, when you're making these pivot decisions, is like kind of step back from all the noise and step back from everything that everyone else is doing and check in with yourself and check in with what's true and honest for you, and be okay with that, because I'm never going to be good at trying to be someone else. Right? And so the best thing for me to do is find out who I really am, and what I'm really good at, and lean into that as much as possible. Because whenever I do that, it's going to be like, okay, she stands out. So I totally agree with that. Just like really trying to chill out with, if you change a little bit, it's okay. It's all right. So.
Yeah. I don't know, Artur, you're sort of more recently graduated than me. Does any of this resonate with your experience?
It does, absolutely, because it's fascinating, Temi, to hear your story. Because for me, it's kind of the same. So when I was in law school, I had the same feeling. A bunch of friends of mine wanted to go to big law, or wanted to kind of merge their lives with the life of the firm, but that's never what I wanted. So I also was looking for small firms or mid-sized firms. And it brought me so much more joy when I was actually working for them, because exactly what you said, I was able to stand out, because I'm sure if I would be in a law firm, a big law firm where I would be, I didn't want to be there. So basically I would not stand out. I would be just one more. Mm-hmm. And doing what I wanted, even though sometimes it's not the same salary, but absolutely it brings more joy, it brings more life. It's another level of personal satisfaction, also standing out. And I guess in the long run, it can bring way more rewards for yourself and for society in general, if you're in the path that you're happy to be in, other than just a path that other people chose for you.
Absolutely. Can I ask, so I have a question. So I know you just finished your LLM. Did you work at a firm between finishing your JD and doing your LLM, or did you go straight through? Or I think I know that. Yeah, remind me.
Yes. So I went to law school in Brazil. So I became a lawyer there. I worked in a law firm for 2 years as a lawyer, and then I came to the US for my LLM. So I practiced a bit there, and then I came here and I did my LLM, and then I started working for Ron.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. I thought I remember reading that or hearing that. I think maybe you spoke about it in the last Zoom. So I'm like, I feel like I was like, wait.
Yeah. Well, and I'm actually very impressed, Artur, because I think when I was your age, there's no way that I had as much clarity as you seem to have about sort of what your interests are and what your passions are, because part of, I think, what Temi, what you were saying is like, you've got to, like, it doesn't just happen by accident. You don't just wake up one day and say, I want to work at WealthCounsel, right? It's like this series of experiences, but also it's coming to know yourself and what your own passions are. That doesn't just happen magically. It takes some work.
It takes a lot of work. And, you know, I have 2 younger siblings and we have a big age gap. So my brother just graduated from undergrad a couple of years ago and my sister just started undergrad. And there's one thing that I'm constantly like, especially my brother, I'm just telling him, relax. You don't have to have it all figured out now. And the thing is that the more pressure that you put on yourself to figure it out now, the harder it's actually going to be to be still and to kind of like understand yourself. And then also part of it is exploring. You try something and you're like, okay, I'm not really crazy about this. And I feel like, you know, just being comfortable with the constant, I want to say trial, fail, like rotation. I'm thinking about a quote that I recently saw from Kobe Bryant about like, if you're too scared to fail, or then you're probably going to fail. If like that's enough for, if that's stopping you. And I think a lot of people are scared of like failing at life. And that's not really possible. I think you only fail at life when you decide, hey, I'm not going to keep trying. You know, and I actually think that that's something that you see when you study people who have been successful, right? Like, I don't think it's just a cliche that we say that. I think it's something that when you look specifically at people who have been the most successful in any realm, in any circle, whether it be law, whether it be entertainment, whether it be sports, you see people who have failed and people who have persisted through that failure, right? And so it's kind of empirical to me, you know?
Yeah, well, there's a few things that I can respond to on that I just, it's, you know, I don't want this to be about me today. I want, because you have such an interesting story, but my last experience before I started my own firm, which was only about 1.5 years ago, I was working at a very big place. And I mean, to really give the Reader's Digest version, everything that I had always done that had worked just didn't work. And it was this failure that, as somebody who's always been very driven and successful, it was really hard to come to terms with. Like, it's not like, there's certain things that you just have to accept. It's just not the right place. It's not the right fit. And when I left, I actually didn't know that I was going to start the firm. I just knew I needed to take a break. And during the first probably 2 months, I developed this routine. And this is something that I think is very important for somebody who maybe feels like they don't know if they're going to have a job, or they're really worried, is have some sort of routine. And every day I spent time reading and I spent time writing. And I started listening to music again. And it was like, it was all of a sudden this creative, what do you want to call it? It was like there was this creative space in my brain that had been turned off, that got, you know, reignited. And I think it was really during that time that I just, similar to what the two of you were saying, is just, I said, enough of sort of going after the societal defined success metric, and just do what I know I'm good at, but also that I'm passionate about. So
it reminds me of what Jim Collins said in Good to Great. He talks about this intersection, and he's talking about companies, but I think it applies to people. People have applied it to people. It's called the hedgehog. I think it's the hedgehog effect. I think I'm saying it correctly. And he talks about finding the intersection between what you can be the best at, what you can make money, really good money at, and what you're passionate about. I think I might be misquoting those three, and finding the combination of those three. And he says a company that does that, right? The things that they're passionate about, the things that they can be the best at, and the things that they can be used to make profit. Like when they can focus in on those things, that's where they're able to be the best. That's how they're able to move from good to great. And so I think as people, it's like, again, going through that exploration, and one thing I found is that sometimes we don't want to pay attention to the things that we're good at because they might have had maybe a label or a value that maybe internally we've placed on it, or other people have placed on it. And I think that we all need to kind of throw that out the door, you know, and just again, lean into if people around you are seeing that there's a particular area that you're kind of gifted in, you know, maybe there's something there. You don't have to do it the same way people have said to do it, but maybe there's something that you should lean into that, you know? So I don't know.
Well, so I mentioned the story that you told, and we haven't gotten into that yet, but I do think it is a valuable story for everybody. I mean, you were telling it to a particular audience, but and maybe you weren't even expecting a 50-year-old white guy to be in the room, but it really spoke to me because it reminded me of sort of what it took to gain confidence. So I would love for you to tell that story to everybody that's listening here as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it won't be as formal as when I said it.
And you had somebody, I think, changing PowerPoint slides or something. I couldn't see what was going on behind me, but
yeah, it was something called an Ignite session. And Ignite sessions, they're like all your slides have to move like within 20 seconds, and it can't be longer than 5 minutes. And I was like, okay, how do I make, you know, say something impactful in this time? So I just shared a story, and the story was from when I first became a lawyer. This was like really fresh on. And I was encouraged, remember I started with criminal defense. So my mentors were like, okay, go to court, watch trials. That's what you do. And so I was like, okay, I'll go. And I would go to court and I would sit in the gallery section. I would not go to where the attorneys were. And I was already a licensed attorney. This wasn't when I was in law school. I'd already passed the bar, had my nice, you know, bar card. But I was so intimidated by like being up there, and I would be in my suit and everything, you know, look the part. But to take that step kind of to move forward was really nerve-wracking for me. Occasionally, I remember kind of when I first moved up a little bit to like the row behind. And then there was a time that one of my good friends came to court, and he's a white male, and he didn't even see me. I remember the county that we were into, and he just came in and he went to the front and he started talking to the, you know, attorneys up there, and he introduced himself to the judge and was just like, oh, and so comfortable and so relaxed and so confident. And for me, the thing that was interesting was I had actually had the opportunity to pass the bar early. I finished law school a semester early. And so when everybody else was walking the stage and about to start studying for the bar, I was walking the stage as someone who had already passed the bar. The next day I was going to go and get sworn in. So I knew that he was part of those individuals who had just gotten his bar card. He was a new attorney. I had actually been an attorney for a couple months longer than him. And yeah, he was so confident. And I did not understand why. I was like, listen, I am an older attorney. I'm a senior attorney. You're my junior. And I stepped back and I was like, why am I holding myself back, right? And I mean, to be honest, we know that there are a lot of structural things, right? We know that we're socialized differently. Again, we're talking about how I'm speaking from a minority woman's perspective. And so when I speak about kind of like that aha moment for me, it's not to diminish the realities of the structural inequalities, right, that we all experience. But it is to find the areas where I can assert some type of control regarding my destiny, right? And I think it's important to where we can to do so. And so in that instance, I'm like, yes, I might have been socialized to feel like, okay, I don't belong here, but is that true, right? And looking again, I'm very big at I'm an optimist, but I try to be a realistic optimist. I try and look at what's really in front of me. And realistically, I look at this young man and I'm saying he's not more experienced than me. Like if we're talking from a technical perspective, my whole 6 months of bar licensure is more advanced. So why should he be able to go up there, feel confident, and I not? And I started to challenge myself. And luckily, he was a friend of mine. We did a lot of work together in the criminal defense realm. We would tag team often. So we would go to places. And often I would almost mirror him in certain regards. And again, I don't believe in mirroring somebody and like exactly trying to be like them. But there were certain aspects of his confidence that I was like, this is an area where I can grow in. And then there were areas with regards to organization or just not preparation, but more so organization that he was just like, hey, I'm just going to go. And I'm like, hold on, where's your folder? Hold on, did you call this person? Take a step back. And we're able to work together that way. But that experience is like imprinted in my mind because it was so clear. I just remember seeing him talk with the opposing counsel and just be comfortable. And
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. And so I think that just for new lawyers, like, you're going to be new, and it's okay. It's okay. And it's not that you shouldn't be scared. Like, I'm nervous too, but you start figuring out ways to, like, how do I navigate this? And then we can talk a little bit more about, like, different secrets that we might have to kind of navigate that. But I don't know, how are we doing with time?
Yeah, I was looking at the time, and this has just been fascinating. Do you have a few more minutes to talk with us, or do you have to go?
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Well, just give us a few more minutes, because I'm actually really curious. You know, I've had a lot of time to think about that story, but it's the first time that Artur is hearing it. I mean, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great story, because I had the same feeling a couple of times, and I can relate to that. And it's nice to see how you reacted to that. How was your reaction to see? Okay, so it's kind of a, like, self-awareness reaction in terms of, well, like, what can I do, what I cannot do. But I mean, if this guy who's less experienced than I am can be at this confident, I'm like, it's obvious that I can be as well. I can be as comfortable as he is. So I mean, it's really, I can definitely relate to that. I can definitely relate to that. And especially since I started my career, especially now, actually, that I came to the US. It's another country, it's another language. So I definitely try to use your strategy sometimes, but perhaps I have not understood as clearly as you did, and I did not translate it that well as you're telling now. So it's pretty valuable to hear that.
It can be interesting to navigate. I think another thing, though, that we sometimes, when we're new to a place or new to an area, new in a phase of life, is we don't want to embrace kind of our not knowing, because it feels like, oh, I should know more. And honestly, sometimes you don't. And one of my friends, she's like a big sister to me, she says, embrace your zero, because there are opportunities in your zero. Like, so while I was really not having a lot of confidence and things like that, like, in terms of the interactions with attorneys, it was something I needed to deal with. But then there were other areas where I could ask people questions in a way that, like, now I've been in this practice for a while. There's certain questions that you're not expected to be a newbie on, right? But when you're brand new, feel free to ask people questions. I would go up to the clerks after a while and I'd be like, listen, and I would do it in a way to kind of make them my friends and make them, empathize with me. And I'd be like, this is my first time in here. Y'all are gonna have to help me. And it was almost like our little secret, right? Yeah. And so they felt like, oh, we empathize with her, and she's not trying to put on an air of, like she's figured it all out. She's confident in the fact that she can figure it out. Like, that's something I think that we have the ability to learn, and we should embrace that, right? So if there's something I don't know, if it's important, I have the ability to learn it, and I should try and take those steps. But I'm not going to act like I do know everything when I don't. And to the extent when I'm sensitive, it's not everybody you can do this with, by the way. You have to pay attention. But there are people who are wanting to help, right? So Ron has set up this conversation where we're able to sit down and talk and talk to people, and Artur joins us. And so these are people who you can tell want to give back. They want to answer questions. You can go to them and be okay with not knowing. Nobody's expecting you to have it all figured out. And so you lean into your zero. And so there were mentors that I would literally bring a file to and say, listen, I don't know where to start. And they would just be like, this is what I do. Step 1, step 2. And I would have my notebook and my pen and paper, and I would write it all down, and try their method and adapt as I go forward. But like, when I don't know things, I feel like there's so much value in, like, embracing what you don't know, because people want to help as long as you come at it the right way. It's your attitude about it, So it's one of those interesting things. You be confident in your ability to learn, to adapt, to grow, but be okay with not knowing everything. Because the people who are confident, they don't know everything. That's not what they're confident in. Their confidence isn't in their knowledge. It's in their person, their identity.
Right. And it's so interesting because something that you mentioned about mentorship, basically, because I guess that's so valuable because it can shape the future of somebody. Because to determine how, like, where I am right now, I had a lot of people in the path who were extremely important. Not only my family and friends, but mentors as well. So people that can just basically help you with a variety of subjects. So in Brazil, I had my previous boss was big mentor. And then at UCLA, some people as well. And then coming to professional life, working with Ron, for example, who's an extraordinary mentor. So those people are really, really helpful. So I guess like this should be kind of a must do for everybody. Basically, you should try to be a mentor as as best as you can, because it's just it can shape somebody's future, right? It can shape what somebody does and what somebody will be. It involves a lot of confidence as well. Because
now I have a question for you.
Yeah,
because I think I'll know what your answer to this is. But like these people that you've considered mentors, did you have to go up to them and be like, "Will you be my mentor?"
No.
Was that how? No, right? And I think a lot of people think that that's what we mean when we say we have mentors. That we went up to somebody, "Will you mentor me?" So like, how has that looked for you? Kind of like when you've had those mentors over time. You know, you mentioned a couple. What was that process for you? Was there a process? Was it organic?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was absolutely organic because it just, yeah, it comes out of, it comes naturally because of your relationship with the person, I guess. It's not something, yeah, as you said, like, don't knock to the, like, in the door of a person, so like, will you become my mentor? Because I guess like mentorship also involves some kind of connection between the mentor and mentee. Is like, I guess you have to feel comfortable with the person, have to connect with the person, and you have to not necessarily have similar experiences, but the person needs to be able to help you navigate your own issues or your own strengths or whatever. So I guess something that comes organically.
No, and you just said something. You said they don't have to have the same experience as you. And I think that's really valuable for me, because one of the things that I have found, right, as a Black female, is that I have many mentors who look nothing like me, right? And those have been really valuable relationships. Now, I do have Black female mentors, who have gone through some of those cultural, social experiences the same as me. But I feel like my mentors, I have like different people that I turn to for different things. And like you also use the word relationship. And it's more so like I have different relationships with people who I see that they have a strength in different areas. And I'm like, okay, this person has a strength in business. So I pay attention to the way they conduct their business work, right? I pay attention to that. I hone in on that. I ask them questions about that. Then there are people who I'm like, I like the way they take care of their finances. They're my financial mentors. Then there are people who I like the way they take care of their families, right? So that's a more intimate type of mentorship. And for me, it's a lot of observation and intentional questioning. And then also like, how can I watch you more? How can I help you more? How can I practice this, in these different realms? And sometimes, like, the person who has the strength that you're looking to grow in is not going to be somebody who looks like you, right? So I have tons of mentors who have not had the same experiences as me, but they have the outcomes that I desire, right? Or outcomes similar to what I desire. And so I'm like, okay, I want to see what you're doing there, and it's just, it takes some time though. We're just navigating and trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, that's so smart, I guess. Like for people watching us right now, I guess it can be really valuable, especially for people from law school. So you can choose different mentors. Don't need to have just one. And yes. Mentors in different areas. Don't need to have only mentors related to the law. You can have mentors related to other areas as well.
Yes. One of my friends loves to say that she's like a distant mentor because of the people that she reads their books. She feels like she's being mentored by them that she reads. So she'll read anything written about them, anything that they write, and just follow them. And she's like, oh, that's my mentor. I'm like, this person doesn't know who you are.
That's a mentor.
Yeah, but that's my mentor. So Michelle Obama is my mentor. Michelle, if you ever see this video,
you know what? We're gonna make sure she sees this.
I hope so. I hope so. So she knows she is my distant mentor. You know, so it's really interesting. And if you're in law school, I'll say this too. You know, some people in law school are like, hey, I know right after I want to go ahead and start my own thing. Like if you know that you're trying to start your own firm immediately, my advice is to be as involved in that legal community as soon as possible, because the people will be excited to have a law student around them who wants to learn the trade of what they're doing. So join their organization. So for example, in Houston, they have the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association. Like if you can join that when you're a lawyer, by the time you're right out of law school, like you'll have people who will be telling you, hey, come sit second in my case here. Come and help me with this. Come and help me with that. Within your second year, everybody's going to know your name and you're going to look like you're going to kind of be ahead of the curve, because you've been exposed to this world. I mean, you're exposed to the practicalities because law school doesn't give you the practical, right? Oftentimes they give us the academic, but they don't give us the like real life. Like this is what this looks like in the real world. This is how you file this document. This is what I used when I filed this type of motion or this type of form, you know? And that stuff is really valuable.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's kind of crazy.
I'm trying to decide if I should just let the two of you just keep talking, or there's so much that has just happened in the past 10 minutes that I just can't keep my mouth shut any longer. Where do I start? One thing that you said that I thought is a theme throughout the past, you know, interchange that the two of you have had is the mentorship thing. I would say now is a time that probably more than ever, if you're feeling anxious or you don't know what's going to happen with your job, it does not cost anything for a mentor to sit down and mentor you.
Yeah. They
may not have the money to hire you, but make those relationships. And you said something about the professional organizations, and this came up in a chat that we had. Well, we haven't posted it yet, but we had a chat yesterday with a very experienced attorney, very successful, and she also gave that same advice. And I know it's only now. I mean, we're immigration lawyers. There's an association. It's got over 15,000 immigration lawyers called the American Immigration Lawyers Association, AILA, and they have a law student membership that's very inexpensive. You know what? If some law students watching this and they can't afford the membership, I'm not going to say I can pay for all of them, but like that's a small thing that maybe somebody that you connect with as a mentor in that area, maybe they can't hire you, but they're going to spend time, help teach you, and maybe they'll pay that fee for a year so that you can go to the social activities, because it might seem silly to spend time going to like a cocktail when you can't even afford a drink, but those are the events where you're going to meet somebody who eventually will need to hire somebody, or will know somebody who needs to hire somebody, and will remember, oh, I talked to this person who just graduated and they were really articulate. They really were passionate about immigration. Whatever it is, like be yourself, but somebody's going to remember you. And I mean, there were so many other things I was thinking about as the two of you. I should have taken notes. I should have learned from your lesson, but I really hope people watch this segment. I think out of all the ones we've done, if you're in law school, this was probably the one that had the most gold in it. So, you know, I just can't thank you enough for being with us today. It's so incredible that I didn't even meet you in person, but now we're talking virtually, and I hope that we'll be able to continue this relationship for many years to come.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just wanted to say what you said, that happened to me. I had a mentor who was like, you need to be a part of HCCLA. I will pay for your membership because that needs to happen. And so it's just to reiterate your point, because I would not have been a part of that. And there were so many opportunities to meet people, so many conversations that were had, so just so many insightful things. My network grew. I felt more supported just by being around other attorneys doing what I wanted to do. So I'm definitely like, I love what you all are doing. This is great because, you know, I know depending on where you are in your career, where you are in law school, I know sometimes it can feel like, hey, I'm figuring this out all by myself. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be stuff that you're going to have to do by yourself, but you don't have to do everything alone. Right. And so I'm glad that there's this forum
By the way, there was one other point that I wanted to make that it was very subtle in what you said. But you mentioned that when you asked for help back in the courtroom, it was the clerk in the courtroom. And I'm sure you asked for many people's help, but I just can't stress enough the importance of seeking help from people that are in the legal profession who aren't lawyers, because they, I think, are the most undervalued, but they could be tremendous mentors. And they're probably would love to have somebody, like you said, most mentors, it's like, we're so happy to have somebody who wants to learn from us. It's a way to give something back that doesn't cost anything. So don't overlook the paralegals, legal assistants, even the receptionist, you know?
Yes. I can co-sign all of that.
So Artur, you get the last word today.
Okay, well, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much, Temi. That was really, really valuable. So I hope a lot of people watched this video. And thank you so much for all your insights, and hope to see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Temi.